بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على سيدنا ونبينا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد
وآله الطيبين الطاهرين لا سيما بقية الله في الأرضين أجل الله تعالى فرجه الشريف اللهم أخرجني من ظلمات الوهم وأكرمني بنور الفهم اللهم افتح علينا أبواب رحمتك وانشر علينا خزائن علومك برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. Alhamdulillah, we have tawfiq to continue our study of history of Shia Islam, and from tonight we start second volume, and the first unit is about the history of the Shia in the 4th and 5th centuries. So this is the beginning of minor occultation. Inshallah, what we will discuss in this unit is introduction to some Shiite governments, scholars of these 2 centuries, in particular about Adarasa, Idrisiyun in Maghreb, Morocco, about Alawiyun in Tabaristan, Hamdaniyan in Mosul and Halab, Fatimids in Egypt, Buwayhids in Iran and Iraq. And among scholars, we will inshallah study the scientific life and cultural and social activities of Sheikh Kulaini, Farabi, Sheikh Saduq, Sheikh Mufid, Sayyid Murtada, Sheikh Tusi, and Ibn Sina. Also, we will inshallah study briefly history of the science of fiqh among the Shia and different phases of the science of fiqh, and also history of the science of philosophy among the Shia. So these are some of the headings of this unit about Shia in the 4th century and 5th century. These 2 centuries can be considered as the era of Islamic civilization, especially for the Shia. From end of 3rd century, the Shia have been established in even civilizational sense, and then in the 4th century, 5th century, they established dynasties or governances in Morocco, in Northern Africa, in Iran, in Shamat. So first let us start with Idrisiyun or Adarasa in Morocco. This is a governance which started in 172 and continued up to 375 for almost 200 years. Why they are called Idrisiyun or Adarasa? Because Idris ibn Abdullah, who was a Hassani Sayyid, he was from progeny of Imam Hassan al-Mujtaba alayhi salam. He, as we will explain, in little more details later, he took part in the movement of Fakh, and in the year 169, he was in this political movement against Abbasids, and when they were defeated, he went to Egypt and then he went to Morocco. And he managed to get close to the Berbers who lived in Morocco, and they established governance. They were very good in making manifestations and kind of presentations of a new era of civilization there. And because of him, this governance is called Idrisiyun or Adarasa. And because they were progeny of the Prophet, so people loved them and had great, respect for them. If you want to go into some more details, we need to mention few things which are for further study. Their aim was not just to expand the territory of Muslim world. They very much acted as muballigh, as preachers who wanted to introduce Islam to the tribes which were there. And they used to call people towards implementation of Quran and Sunnah of the Prophet, and they tried to build religious places. For example, Idris asked mosques to be built, asked the Quran to be taught. It is said that in Morocco, mosques had also the function of universities. They were also places of learning. Also Rabat, which we'll talk about, they were places for learning as well. And some of the cultural things that they did still are there. For example, it is said that even today, when they want to mention Muhammad as a name, they say Sayyidi. Or for example, even if this person is a normal person or is even someone who works as a servant or as a child, still they say Sayyidi Muhammad. Or for example, all the sons of a family can be called Muhammad. Just they may say Akbar, Asghar, etc. And if they don't know someone's name, they call Muhammad. And if a woman, they call Fatima, if they don't know. So even after 11 centuries, these things have remained from the time of Idrisids. As I said, we will have more details about this. So if you want to know why this governance took form and what are the origins, we should know that Alawids, the progeny of Amirul Mu'minin alayhi salam, whether it's from Imam Hassan or Imam Hussein, they were important in the Muslim world, and sometimes they had also movements against the tyrants, and they were calling people towards the rights of Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. One of the movements was the movement that some brothers of Nafs Zakiyeh, and in particular Idris, Yahya and Sulaiman, who were children of Abdullah ibn Hassan al-Muthanna. They were involved in this movement. They took bay'ah from people and then went towards Mecca. And in the area which was called Fakh, which later was used as a name to refer to this movement, they had a battle and hundreds of them became martyrs. Yahya and Idris managed to escape. Suleiman was killed. Yahya went towards Daylam in Iran, but Idris went to Mecca and then to Egypt, and he was in Egypt for about 2 years, and with the help of governor of Egypt, he ran away to Morocco or Maghreb. And then when he arrived there, was welcomed by people there, and because of him being Alawi from progeny of Amir al-Mu'minin and Prophet, so some of the Berbers of Zanate in northern Maghreb, they embraced Islam and they chose him as their leader. This was the beginning of formation of Idrisi government in Maghreb, who were Shi'a, and therefore they started a new era of people becoming Muslims and also having affiliation or attachment to the progeny of the Prophet and Amir al-Mu'minin alayhi salam. In the section for further study, there is also a discussion about Northern Africa. When people of Egypt became Muslims, Egypt became the gate for Islam into Africa and had big role in expansion of Islam in Africa. Then in the year 27, some Muslim Arabs, they took Islam to Maghreb. Maghreb, which is called also Maghreb al-Aqsa, the most remote part of Maghreb, then was somehow isolated, surrounded by the sea, by the mountains, and it was a special place. Little by little, people became Muslims. Some theological schools like Mu'tazilites were there, some fiqh schools like Maliki and Hanafi were there. But some of these Arabs, they didn't have proper treatment of the indigenous people. And Abbasidun on the one hand, and Umayyads who were ruling in Andalus, because Umayyads in the capital finished by Abbasids, but there were remaining of them in Andalus. So they were not treating these people with fairness, equity and justice sometimes. Therefore, when Khawarij started their activities in Maghreb, first they welcomed them, but then when Idrisis started talking and introducing Islam of Ahlul Bayt, etc., people welcomed them and followed them. We can say there was a golden era for Idrisis and a time of decline for Idrisis. From beginning of the governance of Idrisid in the time of the first Idris al-Awwal, up to the governance of Yahya the fourth. So Idris the first up to Yahya the fourth was the golden era. They were independent and they were running their own, state. But when Hassan Hajjam became the governor, they started to go to decline. And at the time of Hassan ibn Qasim, their governance finished. In the era of decline, they were under influence of Fatimids on the one hand and Amavids of Andalus on the other hand, and they had to give them kharaj, and they used to appoint their governors. So they had lost their independence. When they were ruling, they were popular among people of that place, that land, because they were against high taxation. So people used to pay lots of taxes, but they removed that. They provided them with security. They were honoring Berbers. They were tasting the sweet taste of brotherhood. And they were also themselves from progeny of the Prophet. So people had, lots of respect for them and loved them. They built many religious, cultural places. As I said, they were built mosques, and some of these mosques played like universities. They built what it is called as Rabat. Rabat is a place for observing and watching what enemies may do. Normally it's in the borders, on the sea shore or other places. But Idrisis used to make these houses also for worship, these rabat for worship and for education. And most of the people who were in these rabats were called murabitun. They were scholars or ubbad, worshippers, or Sufis. Also we have the group called Shurafa. Shurafa were Alawites who were respected in Muslim world. They were Hassani and Husseini. Those who were Hassani were from Hassan Muthanna, who was the progeny or like grandson of Imam Hassan alayhi salam, Hassan Musanna. And they were the people who managed to form Idrisi government. Those who are Husseini are mostly through Imam Sadiq alayhi salam and Fatimids. We're considered as Shurafa Husseini because they believe in Ismail, the son of Imam Sadiq, was progeny of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. In Maghreb, there are Shurafa who entered there maybe about a century or more after arrival of Islam in that place. And in Egypt also for many years Fatimids were ruling. Majority of Shurafa of Maghreb are children of Idris the first and his son Idris the second. Idris the second had 7 sons. For example, Umar, Qasim, Isa, Abdullah, Muhammad, and you can see that then these sons had, children, and they continued and they still exist there. They made a big army also to provide people with security. They were very careful about justice. Between the years 208 to 247, they made serious improvements in farming, in industry, in trade, and they created a kind of economical boost. Even when there was shortage of food and famine in Andalus in 232 after Hijrah, from Morocco they provided them with food. But then in 253, Morocco itself had also famine and prices went high. They made some cities like Asila, and this was built on one of the old cities called Finiqiya, which was made in the 7th century before Christ. It became a hub for trade. Every year there were 3 seasons for trade in this city, and many people used to go there for trade. They were also encouraging people to contribute to improvement and development of the cities that they were making. For example, when they made the city of Fas in Maghreb, so they said, before we make the walls around the city, whoever makes a house in the city or plants, some trees, can own them. So then many people, went to contribute and develop the city. From the first year, they started coining their own coins. In the year 172, the first coin was made with the name of Idris I. Their dirham, which is silver, had the value of half dinar, which is golden coin. So it was valuable. They were exporting, they were welcoming people who were doing trade, products from metal, minerals, glass, fabrics, gold, wood, skins of animals were being used for trade. We have here some pictures of some of the coins. Inshallah, in the book you will see. Some of their general policies for Idrisids. They try to have religious governance. Therefore, they used to call people to not go after luxury life or, spending too much. And also was very careful about, observing justice. For example, we can refer to some of their general policies. They were not using the title Khalifa. They were using the name Imam. For example, on Mimbar in Masjid in Talmasan, it is written, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, هذا ما أمره الإمام إدريس بن عبد الله بن حسن بن الحسن بن علي. This is made with the instruction of Imam Idris ibn Abdullah ibn Hassan Musanna, because it's Hassan ibn al-Hassan ibn Ali. So they were not using title of Khalifa, but referring to as Imam. They had a council for policy making. They were consulting, or especially consulting the locals, Berbers, in running the state. Sometimes they were involved in even choosing the person who is going to lead. Another policy was that they used to marry with the girls from the tribes, so that there would be strong bonds with the locals. Also, they were not dividing tribes in order to rule them. They were against this policy of divide and rule or divide and conquer. They didn't use, luxurious life, or having palaces, etc. They were trying to follow example of Amir al-Mu'minin alayhi salam. And they were emphasizing on equality of Arabs with non-Arabs. And this was encouraging non-Arabs to go there, although they themselves were Arabs. What was also very important at that time was that Idrisi government was between two big powers of that time, Abbasids and Umayyads of Andalus. And there is a special kind of dynamics here, between two great powers of that time. Inshallah, in the next session, we will talk about Aghaliba. We will talk about Alawiyun and their governance, and inshallah carry on with other issues for the 2 centuries that we mentioned. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen.
اللهم صل على